Back at it again. We are recording here. Nick may be frozen, but he's making a funny face, so we'll leave it there.
Well, I'm back now. I was like, you guys, on this end, both of you froze. So we said, you know what? Tyler's over there fussing at Flo, so they froze it.
We'll let him run with it. I mean, like we kind of talked about it. I mean, as much as I think we all love Flo in the sense of like we are wrestling fanatics, obviously we're sitting here on a show dedicated to, well, really whatever we want, but primarily wrestling. And besides them, YouTube, if you follow like the United World Wrestling, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of other places that you can find wrestling. Like, if you're lucky with ESPN, I think ACC has a small channel that sometimes shows matches. Sometimes.
Same with Big Ten, yeah.
Big Ten will, if you get lucky and catching their matches that aren't like a primetime match, because primetime will be dedicated to basketball and other things. Like you can catch other matches. So, like, catching matches and finding stuff and it's kind of weird to say because the availability of even that is so much more than when any of us were wrestling. I mean, Nick's his son Cale on there who is open to a whole world of wrestling that we never had. Like we've talked about it in the past. Like it was that one little monthly magazine, USA Wrestling, was the only outlet that you received to find wrestling news and do things. So what's out there now is tremendously greater than anything that we had. At the same time, though, Flo does kind of have a monopoly on what they put out and why they're able to get away with I think their pricing is fair in all actuality for what they put out and how much you get, like if you look at the other sports stuff. But there's little nuances, like you said, about like how they word their pricing and stuff that kind of is like
I mean, we've talked about this before, and I think it was you who made this point. And, oddly enough, it was my brother. We were talking about it. He was saying how he's like, I don't think Flo would be around, much longer just because like prices and stuff. I'm like, actually, I think like Flo, they're doing a great job. I mean, do people think that 150 is a lot? Maybe, but I mean, that's a one-time fee for a year. But you also have to think about like the financial backing they're putting into events like what they do with wrestling. They're putting these platforms out there. They're basically financing or giving money to, these events to where you can get these big name draws in and have them come in and wrestle. I mean, without Flo, I don't think we probably would have had the event we had on Saturday. I mean, maybe, but maybe not.
And I think it was a couple of weeks ago, FRL, like one of them, either Nomad or Pi, one of them, like just, I say went off, like finally stood up and defended what Flo actually does. You hit the nail on the head. Like nobody realizes how much money they give back to grassroots, to all of these things and what they're trying to do. So, and I do like it when people say, we want to grow wrestling, and then people fuss about the price. It's like, all right, you can't have it both ways. If we want to support the growth, pay the money and let's do it, man. Quit, either crap or get off the pot. So I know it fell, but I don't know if you guys listened to it today. I started listening to the podcast today, and they brought up a good point. They didn't know if they were going to do any more of what they did unless the numbers worked. But obviously with the server going down, the demand was high. So, I mean, they're already in the works of doing some more. That's a good thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, the thing I also like about Flo too is it takes a lot of, I would say, more obscure sports that don't get as much shine. Yeah. For instance, I was just kind of scrolling through some of the ones, you get to add which sports you like. On there I was seeing soccer, which soccer has a lot of clout, but I saw rugby. I actually enjoy watching rugby when I can find it because it's a pretty entertaining sport. They had cycling on there. I don't think anyone covers cycling on mainstream TV. I mean, you have track and field, you have marching band stuff. I think
they have band and cheer and cross country. I mean, so overall, I think they do a great job of like giving back to all those things and providing a platform for all those places. Yeah. That being said, we also still know monopoly is not where it's at. Like competition is good for everybody. I mean,
it is. It is.
Still need to have somebody else come up and be able to do that.
Maybe in due time, but right now, I think to us, wrestling is popular. Like, this is a great time for the sport of wrestling, but for other people, I don't think it's hit that point where it could be mainstream yet. That's just my opinion, but I mean, once that happens, then I think you will see more people try to get into the game. But I mean, as of right now, I think that they're going to be the only people in town covering that stuff, which is okay. I mean, eventually it's going to get bigger. I mean, we've seen it with they're kind of cross promoting stuff with Flow Grappling and doing like these matchups with Gordon Ryan and having him go against like Bo Nick or Pat Downey or just doing things like that. I mean, eventually we're going to get to the point where we can have multiple streaming platforms for it.
I think that with Flow, like you have to realize like they are still a business. As much as they're a business, and I would like to see them like truly just want to grow wrestling, they kind of still are just business, because that whole thing with Beat the Streets with Jo versus Nolf, that was a big time matchup right there. Flow literally gave zero headline, zero mention or any of that to that match. Now, can I fault them for it? No, because I was a competitor as far as a business standpoint. But they can't on one hand say they're all about growing wrestling when they're still doing business stuff and not promoting other organizations. If they truly were only about like the growth of wrestling, then they would promote and say, hey, go check out these guys. They got them on their channel. Come back to us for our thing. I think they could, because like no matter how they look at it, they're the big dog on that. And then that was just a smaller group with the, Fire TV. It's a one-time thing. But they're a business and they don't have to do anybody else's thing. Is it kind of sad that a lot of people maybe, well, this will be a discussion for a little bit later on. I mean, the match sucked, but the matchup was great. I mean, Nolf versus Jo on paper, who doesn't want to watch that, They had Jo on the card for that match, but something happened. I don't know why he ended up off that card with Flo. The few faults with Flo are things like, one of the things I did want to mention today, that Haley Agulo, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce her last name, women's wrestling, she announced her retirement. And I saw somebody ask the question, hey, Flo, when are you going to like mention, hey, Olympic athlete, qualified for the Olympics, went to the Olympics for the U.S. team. When are you going to mention, hey, she retired? And she posted on there, it's like, the only time Flo has ever said anything about me is when they questioned whether or not I would make weight at the Olympics. They're not going to say anything about my retirement. They said they talk a good game about being for all wrestling, but because she's not Helen Maroulis, Adeline Gray, Sarah Heidelbrand, one of the big names, even though she made the team, she made the Olympic team, she wasn't one of the big names, so she's not a big enough draw for them to mention, which I'm sorry, I think is a little bit sad. I'm like, dude,
I was about to make a messed up joke.
She represented the country in our Olympics. She deserves a spot to say, hey, competitor for the U.S. team is retired.
And we all totally agree with that. And it's one of those things you hate to say. It's no different than Greco, and it's no different than freestyle if you're not one of the big name people. Mm-hmm. And it's no different in any other sport. I mean, we all have our teams that we're fans of, and we can name more. And then when somebody looks at you and they say, oh, you can't name this many people, and you can, they're like, oh, you really are a fan. But if it was another team, you couldn't do it. So, I mean, in one sense, we got to also realize what we're talking about. Like I said, we want it to grow, they want it to grow, but you have to put pressure on them too. Pressure on them to make them grow, and it'll get there. I mean, because they do know they do at least answer most times to what's being put on them.
I think just they're having to realize that they do have an obligation to not just who's making them money or their sport, as journalists for something like that. They started off really interesting in the sense that they started off like us, just kind of like a group of guys talking about it, and they do have their favorites and stuff. But as they've become the entity that they are open to a wider platform that they, and like Nick said, it's a growth thing too. So
what I'm getting from that and from what Nick said about putting the pressure on them, I'm hearing something like a Cerebrus Wrestling Network.
Yeah.
Maybe be direct competition.
Tyler is okay.
Yeah. See,
I'll financially back. Let me just go to the gas station real quick. I got to get some scratch-offs.
Yeah. I mean, I've already mentioned the Cerebrus Network and, talk about the different shows that we could have on here and everything else like that. But yeah, it's it's the backing on all that kind of stuff. I got a whole lot more T-shirts to print if I really want to get there. So, I mean.
You'd be working like a madman.
Put a cutout in of you and Tyler and I'll just talk. You go.
Yeah, there you go. You guys have that. Actually, I just did it. I got a whole nother order sitting in the garage right now. So, one.
You're going to put an addition onto the Cerebras compound because it's becoming the Cerebras sweatshop back there.
Hey, look, I've already talked with a shout out to Cliff Redwell from Compound. Like, I've already talked with him a couple times. I'm like, dude, how do you do it? Like, I'm trying to do my thing here with the garage printing and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, he's been awesome. He offers words of support. He's like, dude, during quarantine, you're doing more than most people. It's like, they literally started off kind of the same way, like printing their own designs for some things and a small club and eventually a small building to eventually LLC in it to just getting bigger and bigger. So as much as Tyler's joking about it, Tyler and I have joked about there was that church that was for sale down the road here that would have made a great compound. You know, the sanctuary would be full of mats, you know.
Have like, I think, have a big shrine to like Dan Gable or John Smith.
You know, but I mean, yeah, who's to say that kind of thing isn't like, you know, fun coming into it or just starting off kind of like how we all are. Like, who knows? Maybe not necessarily us, but, you know, Cale could be running it eventually or something like that, you know, more, you know, long-term wise. But
I mean, think about how far we've come. I mean, since we started it. Like,
yeah. Talk to me, Tyler. Go for it.
Oh no, I was just saying that's what I was saying. Like when we started it, what was it, 2018? I mean, how far we've come since then? Like January of 2018.
Yeah. So, you know, from going out and having other people print shirts for us and people buying those to printing our own shirts now, and so yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to talk about like grassroots, I mean, all this kind of stuff is about as grassroots as it comes. So
no doubt. So I'm on a time crunch as I'm on the video. I got to take the girls. So let's can we jump in? This is awesome stuff. Get people hooked into what we're going to do in the future. He said he wanted to talk after you want to talk about the matches. He said, yeah, he jumps on. That's why he's on here today.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of where we're leading up to, and I wanted to get you guys' input on them too. But so, do we want to go in order, or does Cale have a certain match he wants to jump off with first, or do we want to go from? There's only 5 matches, so we can.
I would say we start with the absolute annihilation match because there's really nothing else to say about it.
Okay.
And then get to some of the interesting ones. So
yeah,
that would be my take. I don't know what you guys say.
Cale, tell us what happened on that the match you talking about, absolute annihilation.
Taylor basically just killed him. Like, I don't think there's any other way you can explain it. He just
did they get out of the first period even?
No, I don't think they did.
No. I mean, my only thing I can say about that match was I was like, did he literally just score with the same single each time? Like, at that high level, you expect a guy to be like, okay, he got 2 on me off that same shot. I was like, okay, change your lead leg, something, Miles. Like, it's just not working. So, yeah. That's what blew my mind was for such high-level wrestlers that he just kept doing the same shot and he just kept working each time. And that's like that whole practice room, break your opponent type of mentality. And I thought it was cool.
I think it's like we said as we were going back and forth, like after like the third one, it was like Miles. It looked like Miles. We know we didn't quit, but it looks like Miles was just like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I know it's coming, but I can't. It was kind of like the workman thing. We can't say what he said in that Christmas practice, but I saw it coming, and he still couldn't stop it.
Yeah, still couldn't stop it. So,
well, I mean, what do you think? Do you think it was like maybe a little bit of shell shock or you know, kind of fans like? I expected that matchup to be a lot better than what it was, honestly, but I didn't think David Taylor would come in and just – I didn't think it was going to be like that, honestly. I was like – when that happened, it was like one of those things I was watching on my laptop. I had UFC playing in the background. I looked up at the UFC fight that was going on. I forget who was fighting, and then I looked back down and I'm like, oh, cool, it's pretty much over.
Yeah. Right now.
I expected it to be a tech. But I was like everybody else. I expected to go a little bit longer, to be a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, even the first scramble, the first little bit, it was like, okay, all right. And it was like David adjusted, and like you said, Ed, it appears Miles never adjusted.
Yeah. So, all right, DT made one mistake in my opinion, and I'm curious as to what Cale will think about this. His mistake at the end was he called out Sadulayev. He was like, I want Sadulayev. Now, the mistake was not Sadulayev. Did you see the response? There's two responses that happened. One, Sadulayev laughed at him, said, haha, gain some weight, little boy. Two, Jaden Cox was like, hold up, let me be first in line to that. Nobody wants Jaden Cox right now. Do you think he wants a piece of Jaden Cox? Go ahead, Cale.
No, I just think even though he's like above that, I just think he just wants to like wrestle the best like right then and there. Like he doesn't want to stay and prove his point just like in the U.S. He wants to like just go ahead and stay international.
International? All right. I can see that looking past the U.S. and internationally. My thought, though, is like nobody wants to wrestle Jaden Cox in this country or in the world right now. Dude is, I don't know.
I mean, who wants to wrestle Sadulayev either? I mean, both of those are straight killers.
Okay, apparently DT.
Yeah, apparently DT.
Yeah, at first I thought it was an amazing thing, and then it was like Jaden Cox was like, hold up, I'm still in country, and, you know, how about we go first, run it back one more time. And then in my mind, that the look on Jaden Cox's face was the same look that he had when Bo Nichols said, looking forward to representing the U.S. And Jaden Cox in that interview was like,
Okay.
Now, I didn't see any of those responses. And I guess the way I took it is as those guys were looking at all of this as like a showcase. So a chance to pit those matches together that everybody really wants to see.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that was the way I took it. The response I did see, I don't know if it was from Sadulayev, but it was from like maybe like the Russian Federation, whatever.
The rep or something, yeah.
And they were just like, okay, let's do it.
I thought that was the one that Dake called out. He called out, I can't pronounce his name either, but the other guy, and they were like, he was like, our Russian Worlds or Russian Nationals is this month. Let's make sure it happens before then, or like pick a date.
And that's kind of what it is. But that was the way I took it. Like I said, I didn't see, I guess because it was like there. And if we had two guys like Dake and Taylor and more guys that see this as like we're saying to help it grow, like Tyler was mentioning earlier, then I guess that was why I took it that way. Like, hey, why not? Let's see take DT and Sadulayev go at it. Why not?
Oh yeah, I'm down. So, all right, well, that's going to lead into another question, but let's get to these other matches before you got to roll, just in case, and then I'll ask that final question about what you guys think too. Let's go ahead and go back, I guess, to the beginning. Vito and Alvarez. What did you guys think about that match? I actually liked that match.
Nice shoes. That's what I had to say.
Vito's air tempos. What is it? Dodo loves the kids or something like that? Is Cale's like, yeah, that's him.
He knows all this. That's why I brought him on.
Yeah, I mean, he came out with the killer design on that, and yeah, he had the best shoes of the night. We'll give him that. And I thought they had like the best like back and forth match, like wrestling, like the whole time wrestling. They were the first one to kick it off, so I thought they did a good job setting the tone. Like it's gonna be they're both getting after it. They're both looking to score. Hopefully everybody else the rest of the night was gonna go that way.
Go, Tyler.
Anybody else?
No, I was gonna let Cale talk about it.
There you go.
I thought it was a good match. I wasn't expecting Alvarez to 4-point Vito at all, but like I thought Vito was gonna win, but I wasn't expecting Sammy to like put up that much of a fight and it to be that close.
Yeah.
And I thought Vito was gonna go for like bigger throws, but that match didn't disappoint me at all. It was a really good match.
Yeah, I liked it. Those Rutger guys come to scrap every time. There's ever since Ashnalt and Suriano and the culture, the coaches, those guys like, dude, they're just a fun team to watch. They're fun guys to watch. Like it doesn't matter whether it's like this situation or a duel. They come out to scrap ready to go, and I appreciate that. So
yeah. They're kind of like one of those teams that you look at on the schedule and like this is going to be an ugly one.
Yeah,
this is going to be a fight. So, but yeah, no, that matchup, yeah, it was pretty good, or not pretty good. It was really good, but I think it was to me, it kind of set the bar a little too high for what I was hoping would come after. I mean, because after that, everything – I'm not saying – it wasn't terrible, but, I mean, it's just like I was like, okay, we're going to have some awesome matchups like this, and it was just kind of like, eh.
And that's kind of how I thought too. I was like, man, that's why I thought it was such a great match. And I was like, and it's like when the prelims in UFC outdoes the main card, you're like, oh,
yeah, you're like, oh, that's great.
Yeah,
maybe that's why Flow crashed, because they knew the rest. They couldn't get any better. Trying to get people to leave. The only side note I had on that match, I agree with everybody else. The only side note I had on that match, which kind of jumped out, when they said where Alvarez was from Garfield, New Jersey. That's where my wife's family's from. So I was like, hey, know that place.
There you go.
But otherwise, I was like, hey, tell your mom there's a guy from Garfield, New Jersey wrestling. So, yeah.
Who was after that? We had was that the RBY match next?
Yeah, RBY and Mueller.
Mueller. Yeah. What biggest takeaway from me was what'd you think about RBY going double DeSanto? I don't think we're gonna call it that now.
Conor McGregor, double DeSanto.
So okay, here's the next question for you, Cale. When are you gonna go double DeSanto, and what's your dad gonna do in the corner?
Slap me, probably.
That kid better
Slap me.
That's all I'm gonna say, because he knows he's gonna get the snot missed out of him.
Oh. All right, I really want to see you go double DeSanto now. Send you a card with some cash in it.
You would do the same thing, too, if Devin did it. You know it. That's the funny thing.
Yeah. But, I don't know. I thought that was funny. He went double DeSanto. Beyond that, though, I mean, RBY is just amazingly quick. I don't know what else to say about him there.
I did not expect that matchup. Let me rephrase that. I didn't expect RBY to look as good as he did in this matchup. I kind of thought that one would be another like kind of gunfight, but RBY looked great. So I mean,
he was not. I'll let him go a second. Yeah, I thought it was going to be a stylistic matchup that was going to make it a little low scoring. But yeah, RBY came out, and for the first time, I thought he lived up to the hype for me. He's always, in my opinion, everybody's always hyped him up, and I've always been like, really? This? Saturday night, I was like, dude's legit.
Yeah.
That was the first time that he did, because like I said, he just totally
he's not really a gimmick, but like Devin even said it. He's like, hey, that's the backflip guy that made the, I was like, yeah, he's the backflip ESPN highlight, the first one, so, you just kind of think of him as that, just kind of flashy and, he's fast, but how good is he really? Okay, yeah, he's
kind of like I think it was Anthony Valencia years ago, like a few years back. Like he kind of had that same little
flash.
Yeah, he had that flash that a lot of people knew about, and then so how good was he? And then he was kind of meh. But his brother, amazing. But yeah, I mean RBY though, I was super hyped on him. To me, he can be a little inconsistent, but this past year, I mean, he has gotten better. I mean, it's just a matter of
that matchup actually made me kind of excited to want to see NCAAs again, or like NCAA wrestling again. I'm like, his trajectory of things in that weight class. I'm like, it just kind of reminded me again of like, oh God, I want to see them wrestle again, and I missed it. Like, oh, he's still going, and if they're all on that weight class as good as they should be, and they're all progressing that way, dude, it's gonna be a fun one to watch.
Oh yeah.
All right, so who's after RBY?
Caldwell, who freaking warrior gladiatored up and had no clue.
Against, like, my wife even said, she was like, look at that dude. He's like a little spark plug. Like, you just had Pletcher out there. And, all right, so here's the question then. With Caldwell being 10 years removed, Pletcher being fresh out, is either Caldwell that high of a level? Like, imagine if he'd stayed with it for those 10 years to have wrestled the way he did and keep it as close as he did? Or is Pletcher not on the level?
I would need to see Caldwell wrestle again to make that judgment. But, I mean, I talked about it in our little group message. I mean, that's been my issue with Pletcher, ever since I've seen him. he's good and he always finds a way to win. But up until especially early last year, he's never really been one of those guys that you're going to look to, blow someone out of the water. He's not going to major. He's not going to. He's just gonna get you three, in a dual format thing. And honestly, that's kind of what he did Saturday. Is like I was expecting this to be a wash. I mean, not a wash, but a blowout, and it was way more competitive than I expected it to be. Coming from someone who's been consistently wrestling and is one of the top guys at his weight against somebody who has not been wrestling in a decade.
All right, Kel, what do you think? Is he top tier wrestler, or is he just kind of middle of the road for senior level?
I don't think he's like top tier, but I still think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't really impress me that much as like other wrestlers do, but I mean, I like to watch him just because of he's not like he's a big 141 pounder, but he's like not tall. He's like compact. So
it's all in his legs.
Yes.
So Tyler, your comment that you said, I totally agree with, and I also think it totally shows the issue that we have with wrestling. We want the big time thing, and we forget that solid three is more times. You guys know this. That solid three a lot of times is more important in a dual match than knowing I'm going to get six. Sometimes, because you send that kid out there and he can beat everybody. He may only win by one, but he's going to win. And so he gets that win every time. And that kid is the tough kid where it wasn't showy, but he knew Caldwell was looking for head tosses. He knew he was looking for splatos. He knew he was looking for big moves. So he did Wrestling 101. And he just did position. And that was the way I took it. I was kind of like, man, this is a boring match. Caldwell's going. Fletcher just showed you if you're fundamentally sound, it's not pretty. I mean, it's not pretty.
He's the coach's dream. He's like, look, guys, this is what it takes, and this is what gets results.
And I would love to see Caldwell do some more wrestling because he was at about 2 minutes. He was done. He was freaking done, but he was still going. So.
Oh yeah.
No, but yeah, I agree with that. Sorry, I had to sneeze there. I mean, that's one thing about Fletcher that, I mean, I do agree with. He's going to win. I mean, it's not an issue of is he good enough to be at that top tier. It's just because, I mean, he's shown that he is. I mean, he's always going to find a way to win. But to me, it kind of reminds me of the wrestling version of GSP. When GSP got later in his career, he's not going to sit there and go out there and get too risky. He's going to stick to the basics. He's going to do what he knows that it takes to win. He's not worried about putting himself in danger. He's just going to do his thing, and it's not necessarily the most entertaining or the most pretty, but he gets results. So, I mean, it's hard for me to bet against him when it comes to that part, but at the same time, there's just something that I feel that lacks. Like when you have a guy like let's say like a Spencer Lee, or I mean, you can name any top guy at the top weight class. Or in any weight class, they're going to win, and they're consistently going to win, but they're always also picking up these bonus points too, which for me, Fletcher's never been in the NCAA. He's never been a bonus point machine up until, last year.
No. Yeah. He kind of reminds me of Frank Molinaro on the senior level, kind of that guy that's in the mix. He's that steady grinder and who can have that good tournament and break through and make a team or something. But, but like Nick said, it's showing that consistency and that base knowledge and everything is what wins long term. So I could see it paying off in the long run and something like a Molinaro type year where he's fifth going into the bracket and then comes out the guy that wins it and everybody's like, what happened? Well,
but at the same time you're like, well, it doesn't really surprise me.
Yeah. All right. We already talked about DT. So I guess we're on to the headline match. The very well talked up by both guys. Really fun to watch all the preview stuff. Although I was a little annoyed at Flo for having to replay all the stuff, but then like Tyler said, apparently this is a COVID thing, like the cleanup between matches. So okay, I get it. It did lead to the question, what do tournaments and things look like for us even? Like,
Let's talk wrestling. Keep going. We're not talking COVID. I'm
Yeah.
going to ask him again. What's
I'm talking about like mopping mats and such. So that's for
I'm
future.
talking about it right now. Not right now.
But that's for future. But like beyond that, the match itself was kind of. What'd you think?
Kel, go for it.
I thought it was a disappointment, to be honest.
What?
I didn't think it was that great, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
To me,
What did I say in the our group chat thing? Like, one good scramble doesn't make a good match. Like, I think we all were like, and that scramble was awesome. Where he kept blocking his feet, and he had him. I think for like that 5 to 10 seconds, we were all like, oh.
Dake bomb.
And then it didn't happen, and then the rest of the match continued on.
At the end, he almost had that Dake bomb, and I was excited, but
yeah.
I would say within the first 20 seconds, watching Shimizu, and we went back and forth last week on this, like what was it going to be?
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty obvious to me within like the first 20 seconds. Shimizu was just there, just have a good time. If he won, great. But you know what? He was just the thing that I don't know if it impressed me, but also should make Dake and some like worry was Dake got in and Shimizu just stepped out like it was nothing. And that was when I went, okay, he's at your weight and he's just stepping out of your singles and stuff like that, and he's just chilling. That was impressive. I mean, I know he lost, but I was impressed with the way the dude just chilled and still was there.
Or that one scramble that we mentioned,
Yep.
How he was blocking the feet, and like how there was no panic whatsoever of like him getting tossed. He was just like, oh yeah, you ain't doing that. Yeah, you ain't. And I'm like, who just stops Dake dead in his tracks while he's got you? Because I mean, his feet were off the mat.
At Dake's weight, not at 74. At Dake's weight.
Dake picks you up off the mat. His feet were not touching the mat. He was having a block on Dake's heels and calves and like on him. I was like, how? And what? No, like.
What are you gonna say? Jump in.
To me, like after the match, he was like Dake might have won at his weight, but to me, I won that match because like he was like, if it was at my weight, then I would have won.
Yeah, I mean,
what was it, like the final score, like 4-3?
Yeah, something like that.
I also think that they were in like, I mean, Dake was having a hard time turning him, like, but I think they were in hard tear for too long, to be honest. I thought they should have let them up.
Yeah. All right, so what do you think about this one, too? So, obviously, Dake and Burroughs have gone back and forth with things. Burroughs has wrestled Shimizu, and Burroughs made the comment of, like, this is the guy that's supposed to unthrone me. And, like, Burroughs has beaten Shimizu at weight in great matches. Does this make any of us, or Cale, what do you think about Dake versus Burroughs? Who's your pick, and does this change or influence that any at all?
Hold on. You also got to throw in the fact that Shimizu, also remember, he also said, see you in the Olympics if you get there.
If you get there.
So I think you got to add the Shimizu and the Burroughs.
Yeah.
Because that one, the Burroughs was like, but even Shimizu, I was like, ooh.
Yeah, so it's another. So even though Dake won, it's kind of like Shimizu said, Dake won that match, but in a lot of ways he lost. Like, and not only with those jabs, but like it does put that sense of doubt in your head, like, ooh, can he get it done against Burroughs? I mean, we've all talked about it. I wonder what Cale thinks. Yeah.
Burroughs is better than Shimizu in my point of view, but Dake is struggling with the person that's like less weight than him, like lighter than him, basically.
Yeah.
And now with Jordan that's like gets like Dake at his weight, then I just feel like Burroughs is not gonna say they're gonna run over him, but in a way, like the match will be close, but it won't be close at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know, because
What I was gonna say is my biggest issue with Shimizu after the match was the fact that he even said, he was like, well, this was not my weight, and I'm like, dummy, you called him out at this. Like, you said you wanted to compete here. Why are you calling? I mean, that's a different point. But no, Shimizu just showed that, like you said, I mean, even in situations where you think he's in danger, he finds a way to get out of it. I mean, I was impressed by both guys. Dake did turn him once, I think, right there on the end. they were quick to put Dake on the shot clock too. But I think it was one of those things that matchup should have been way more interesting than what it was. Like way more high paced and way more like much more attacking. And it just kind of seemed like it was more of those things like a chess match, like who's gonna shoot first and kind of thing. The match was somewhat a letdown, but also it was interesting to see.
So there's two things I agree with, and I want to add to what you're saying about a letdown. The thing was let down to me, and it wasn't the match. The shot clock thing kind of confuses me because Shimizu played the international style, which is if your back's to the center, you're in control.
But to center.
But we also know that rule has been somewhat adjusted, if I'm not mistaken, to where what Dake was doing should have been considered. He was the offensive person. So that is still the subjectivity of the officials, which is a problem in our sport. We could discuss that forever.
Yeah.
My issue with it all, and I know there's nothing we can do about it, was the fact that it was all hyped up, and we see it with UFC and everything else. It's all hyped up, all the smoke, everything. You come out there, and just like this, it was quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard. It was really hard to get into something I'm passionate about when it's just that dead silent. So
yeah,
and part of that could be due to both guys knowing that their opponent is high level and that they both equally have weapons that just the slightest miscalculation can cost them an entire match. And maybe they were a little too concentrated on that, or maybe maybe it just wasn't a good match. I mean, you don't know if it's a matter of them just being too careful or too calculated, or if those two guys are just that good to make the match look boring against each other. I don't know. So
I thought Dake was attacking. I thought Dake was doing.
Oh, he was.
To me,
he was
doing what he does. He was being Shimizu.
Yeah, he was. Which leads to my overall question that I kind of wanted to ask about all of the matches in general. The matches from Rumble on the Rooftop. These types of matches, and I think it has to do with the nature of our sport, how we coach our sport, and what we do. With wrestling, like, we're trying to get our guys to win. We're trying to win fundamentally. We're building Luke Pletchers. We're fundamental good basics, sound. We say a win is a win. We're not worried about if it's flashy or not. We kind of preach that. We want good, solid technique and good wrestling to build a base to continue to do well so that you can have a good high school career, so you can have a good collegiate career, so you can have, be international and do all those things and lead up to that way. What we just saw was, not last night, but the other night in the Rumble on the Rooftop, those two events were not events for having a person build points for the to have an event for placement points for seeding purposes, to advance to another tournament. So winning was not necessarily the objective, whereas these two events were entertainment events. So how do we change those guys' mindsets because they got paid to, in essence, entertain, which is a weird concept for wrestlers because we're geared toward winning that match. And if we have to do it, like you said, hey, what Luke Pletcher did was sound and fundamental, and it's how we coach, and that's that guy that we want consistently on our team. But if we're now having like one-off events like this where it's kind of entertainment, how do we get those guys to win or lose? Would we be talking about it differently if Chimizo and Dake were both just kind of letting off some crazy shots and it was entertaining and it was like a 6-minute scramble of pure craziness because maybe they weren't thinking about winning but just wrestling? I don't know. I'm not sure how to
I've got an idea about how we could do that.
Incentivize, entertainment. Okay. That's what this was.
Before you say it, Tyler, make sure that it's something you want to publicize so Flo can steal it or not, okay?
Yes.
I would, Ed, because I'm gonna go ahead and like try to trademark this idea if I can. No, my thing would be is just to create an official ranking system. One, this opens up more events like this in the future. So you could have it would encourage more events and more guys to go against each other, within these weights. And you could have like an official ranking, like, okay, so let's say for instance, Pat Downey, David Taylor, they have a matchup, and even though it has nothing to do with like a world tournament or Olympics or anything, it's still him beating Pat Downey or Pat Downey beating DT. Either way, should be taken into account in seeding. Like they'd be like, okay, I see that he won in this matchup that happened here. I mean,
see then.
It gets convoluted. I mean, yeah, but I mean that would be the only way to do it, in my opinion. I mean,
Then what happens then is you're just going by just winning and just finding that way to win by 1 point and just feeling out and just scoring on that last minute, or it doesn't lead to excitement.
It's like
I think
local
maybe an incentive type thing, like UFC. Like UFC has bonus incentives. So if both guys score more than 6 points in a match, you guys get a bonus because that's points scored. You tech your person, DT is going to win every time. But you get a bonus. If there's a fall in the first minute, we'll come back 2 matches later and you guys go again. So you're not.
That's a different type of incentive.
Like we want to incentivize one single night of exciting wrestling.
All right, so I'm going to throw something out there to you, and once again, I'm just going through the process here. Outside of DT and Dake, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the guys that you hear about that are now jumping on board, it seems to be that want to do this, are not your top tier people.
And
which is what we've said. But also, let me finish this, and this is what I'm processing this. It's an Olympic year. You don't want to show anything on an Olympic year. So this is a chance, but and also it's kind of what Tyler's saying. It's a chance for those guys that are maybe not number 1 or 2, but the ones down. They now get to showcase, get their name out there. All the stuff we just mentioned earlier about Flo not doing, you get to do it. They get the hype. You throw in a Dake, throw in a Taylor, but now all of a sudden those big name guys start to want to get, just like UFC did. Now those big name guys want to get in and get their money's worth, and it does grow. It is sort of a grassroots thing.
Yeah.
But it is. It's about that dream match because we're all wrestlers. Even wrestlers are like, yeah, I want to go against him. You want to go out there.
No, yeah, I mean, totally. Like what Purdy's saying, I think it's a good idea to incentivize it, but I think the issue with it is you're wanting to incentivize, you're wanting to give them incentives for one-time events. I'm looking at it as make this kind of like a, I don't want to say like an MMA promotion or anything, but make it to where you have more events, and that way you have people wrestling multiple times a year, and it just creates a desire. You get more shows. So you have more shows a year so you can get a bigger audience. But 2, make it where if someone beats another person, there's some sort of ranking that is, I guess you could say, official, that helps them
come up with some sort of league in a sense.
In a sense, yeah, in a sense. I mean, does it have to be – could it be like something like like I said, local MMA? Because local MMA promotions, you have like 4 or 5 different organizations around, but you still know who's the top dog out of all 4. And then so you could do that. You could be like, well, this person's tearing it up in Russia right now. He's killing it on this local scene. We have this wrestler in the States. Let's bring them together and see, who would be the better of the 2. And then whoever wins that, when it comes to like world tournaments and like all that, when you have the seeding, you take into account those matchups. I mean, again, it gets convoluted and it's kind of hard to do that, but I'm trying to think the bigger picture to help, 1, to help grow the sport, and 2, to get more wrestling, 3, to make these guys feel like these matches matter. If that makes sense.
I think this is actually what they're starting to do, because they're talking about already doing another card. And obviously you saw Askren and Flo talk about starting to incentivize it. And it is the model that started UFC, just getting people together. And then that led to what you're talking about, getting the ranking. So we're trying. It feels like we're all on the same page. We're trying to jump several places ahead instead of realizing we just got to start doing steps. We got to start doing every month and a half, 2 months. We got to start having these cards where it goes from 5 to 10. You get the females, you get the Grecos. Who's number 1. You start doing it, and then you have Americans calling out Russians, Iranians, Kazakhs, whatever they are. But you start bringing them in, they start going, oh, well, it doesn't affect my UWW ranking. It's just a chance for me to go over here and make some more money. Then I think you'll see more people come from overseas, as long as it's not tied to UWW ranking.
Yeah.
And
then we need to
I would like it to be tied to the rankings, though. I think that would be good because it would prevent people like Chamizo going in there and just kind of like, this match doesn't matter, therefore I don't need to give it my all. This might make guys feel the pressure just a little bit more because then they can scratch and claw, and you can have a guy who's at the bottom tier, try to work his way up for better seeding, and it just storylines. Like this guy's trying to fight for the third seed, and if he gets this, if he wins this match, he's the third seed, which benefits him at this tournament, later on. I mean, I wish it would affect ratings, just because I feel like there could be bigger storylines that you could pull into it. But that's just me.
Yeah, you're not going to get it because, heck, even right now with UWW stuff, people don't go because there's only like 4 or 5 events throughout the year that even count.
Yeah, and that's the international stuff and politics with that.
We don't want them in it. We don't want them involved in it. We just
they need to do something kind of like I think it was in Iran about 3 or 4 years ago. Adeline Gray and a few other wrestlers went over there and wrestled in like the league, and like they had these rich oil guys that's literally what they were. They're like inherited family and they love wrestling, and they literally paid for like a season. And like Adeline Gray was like a team member of this team, and they went and wrestled like 6 or 7 duels with the teams and in their different areas. So part of it also starts with somebody who has the backing to do it. I mean, Flow is getting some backing because as much as people complain about the money and everything like that, yes, they're getting a lot of money, but remember, it's still the wrestling community. It's not like a football community, like putting in that much money. So there's only so much backing that they themselves even have with all of it. So, but they're getting it started, but I think that would be a good model to go back and take a look at and see what that was like in Iran.
Sounds like you're talking about a – go ahead. No. I was going to say, what it sounds like he's talking about is almost like a kind of like an international or like a nation-based dual team that constantly competes with each other, which would be cool. I mean, you look at other sports already do that to an extent. Like, earlier I mentioned about Flow covering rugby. Rugby does that. They have leagues where, it's like New Zealand, Ireland, Britain, and all these teams. I mean, and there's also like sub leagues that are involved in that may have like 4 teams into it. But I mean, that kind of sounds like what you're talking about, but I could be mistaken.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
I got a couple things before we got to go. We need to get Andy Cook on and let him talk to us about his time in India.
Yeah.
He's boots on the ground. He can really fill us in on how they've done it and what's going on over there. And I've been meaning to send that on our text. I need to get with Andy.
Yeah.
The second thing was I was going to say, like, so we need to head out here in just a couple minutes. I didn't know if Tyler wanted to do a Alien Wings question to the young buck over here before we head out.
So I'll do an easy one for the wings. What's the best one? No, there's a good follow-up.
That's always there.
No, there's a good follow-up. That's not at all related. So what's your favorite flavor wing, Cale?
I like Parmesan.
What, Parmesan? Okay, who would win in a fight, Bigfoot or Nessie?
Nessie.
I don't know.
Loch Ness Monster.
Bigfoot.
Aha, good.
Okay. I guess we're assuming. We're automatically assuming that Nessie came on shore then for this fight.
Exactly. That's like a crocodile and a lion. Crocodiles don't get out of the water.
Well, unless it's a surprise, so like, so.
I was on the spot there. I had to come up with something, but I mean,
I like it. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Hey, you know what? You're not the only one on the FRL. They do the Alien Hour every couple of weeks, and I think about you when they do Alien Hour because they do like.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was like, really? They have one too. So.
I mean, y'all did see what the Pentagon said the other day, didn't you?
No, I haven't seen anything. All they're talking about is COVID and pedophiles and.
No, you didn't see the UFO news.
Sarcasm, haha. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, they released that.
You ain't good at sarcasm. He's like, no, he's not.
But yeah, no, I mean, that was pretty weird. When you sent me that, Purdy, I was like, I'm not crazy. I mean, I don't even.
We said don't go too far with that.
let me rephrase. I'm not crazy when it comes to aliens. I mean, there they are. Like, they just told you, and then everyone's like, okay, cool. Like, 2020 is still, like, weird. Let's not talk about that. I'm like,
wait a second. Didn't that come out the day that Garmin went down?
Oh,
what?
that was
That was the day that Garmin crashed, so that meant nobody cared about UFOs. They had Garmin crash. That's all everybody cared about. Garmin's down. Nobody cares about UFOs.
And that, I think all that, I'm surprised Tyler ain't made the jump that like Garmin went down because they found out about the UFO. So like the UFO like stopped working, so Garmin and all its GPS stopped working because we've really been running off of alien technology the whole time anyway.
Hey, Elon Musk, apparently one of his things busted up a satellite up there too, so who knows? He may be an alien.
Yeah, geez, I don't know.
We have evolved.
That's the way it should be. You guys out here?
I was just listening to a podcast earlier, and they were talking about that. They were talking about aliens. Like, if you look at the prototypical, archetypal image of an alien, it still looks like a primate of some sort. It's just, it follows our evolution. And the person then went on to say that, like, aliens are just, like, future us coming back in time. I don't know. They got crazy. They got too much fun.
Definitely know what they look like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Well, I mean, we obviously have so many alien specimens laying around, like.
They're over there with all the Bigfoot specimens.
They're hidden in Area 51. I mean, there you go.
Hey,
Bigfoot's over there swimming in a pool with Nessie right now.
I gotta go. I'm getting dumber. I've already had these conversations.
Good for the brain.
All right, man. We'll catch you guys later. Cale, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, bud.
All right, Tyler, you and me right now.
Oh, yeah.
I meant to say this, too. Dude, we're coming back up on the kind of the end of our summer tour of the regular Tuesday afternoon recording. This week and then next week, and then I guess I'm back at school after that. So we'll have to figure out a time for everybody, and it may just be back to Tyler and myself because I know Nick will be teaching or doing something. I don't know what Alabama's doing. But we will be back at it here, I guess, maybe, sort of. Who really knows? But we'll figure out a time, and we'll keep rocking these out, at least you and I.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, how are you going to keep up the shirt stuff with, going back to school?
I don't know. For right now, I mean, they're still after school because, I mean, I'm not football, and apparently any other sort of extracurricular stuff is not happening. So,
I mean, if you need extra hands, I mean, I'm sure you can just convince like Devin and Henry that it's an extracurricular, it's a sport, and just print them things out.
Yep.
No, but I'm worried about our sport. I mean, especially at our level, at the middle school level. I mean, really
Nick rightfully so didn't want to talk COVID today, but I get it. But there was a very good question though. Like we just watched that. That was a high level event. That was senior level professional wrestling because it was a paid event type thing that they were, like you said, had to do with like the UFC with the mats and taking care of things. What is the trickle down effect for our stuff from that to college to high school to middle school? Like, are we so far down on the totem pole? Are we I hate to say it, but like, so if middle school doesn't happen, like we still help out with the high school guys. So are we now just a high school season this year? I would take just a high school season versus no season.
Which for us, I think would be fun. Just kind of get back to
be there the whole season instead of being in the middle school. So if we're
don't get me wrong, I love I enjoy coaching wrestling at any level, but there's something about getting to work with guys in the room, at a little bit higher level, and guys you can actually roll around with. I mean, so that might be kind of fun for us. It kind of give us maybe a refresher, maybe give us a different mentality to come back to our middle school guys, and I don't know. But I worry. I just worry about our seasons.
As soon as we know, we'll let everybody in the world know what we know for our season stuff. But right now, it still seems like everything, at least in our state, is geared toward high school football, seeing what they can do, and then moving on from there.
Kind of just seeing how it goes, kind of
seeing their short season. So, whether or
I
not
will say this:
we just got to cheer for them and hope that it works out so that we can cheer for ours too.
Yeah, I'm just gonna buy a private island like Dana White and hold our season up there.
There we go. Have our season. Hey, the Cerberus Island. So
yeah. Now, how would you feel about it? What if they canceled high school, middle school, but kept college? Would you be okay with that?
I mean, okay with it.
As okay as you could be.
Is as okay as I could be. At least I still get to watch wrestling. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could start doing like
it's kind of the
media
trickle down
coverage.
thing. My best feeling is, yay, we get to wrestle. Second best, okay, we still get to work with the high school. Third best, okay, at least we're watching college. Fourth best, okay, only the Olympics. And fifth best is I hate everybody and will kill everybody because nobody else is getting to do anything. So, I don't know,
If it comes down to only a college season, I say we buy media licenses and we start going to these events. Just do that.
I think that is a
Because I
brilliant.
mean, it's cheap. It doesn't cost much. I think it costs maybe like less than $50 to get a media license, and we'll just go there and do live coverage of
You heard it,
every
guys.
event we can get
That's
to.
the plan for everybody. So if we have nothing else, we're gonna go get our media license, and we'll be Cerebrus on the road. So
Oh yeah,
awesome.
we'll get to go to we'll go to the Scuffle. You can go to the Scuffle. I'll go to Midlands.
Yeah, we can travel to
Mitch.
different ones. So yeah, for real. Dude, it's going to be awesome. Either way, all right, so look, Cerebrus is staying positive. We're moving forward. We're going to have some great stuff no matter what, whether we're covering college wrestling or we're wrestling in the room. Until then, I guess this episode will be Doug Bigfoot versus Nessie. So
Bigfoot obviously wins that. Cale knew what he was talking about. I mean, if Nessie were to come on land, Bigfoot just absolutely demolishes it. And if Bigfoot could swim, I still take my chances with Bigfoot.
I don't know. I think if it goes to the water, we got Nessie. It's got that long neck with the reach around. It's not like an alligator where it can't turn around on it.
You have to think about how strong silverback gorillas are. Now, you put a silverback gorilla times 2, it's like King Kong, basically. I mean, I just feel like Bigfoot would get a hold of the jaws and just like.
It's whether it gets a hold of it or whether or not Nessie gets an arm on a shoulder joint and rips an arm off. So,
No, yeah, there is that, but I mean, I still take my chances with Bigfoot. I'm all about the primates.
There you go. All right.
All right.
I'll get it all up. I'll hot you later on, man.
All right, man. See you.
See ya.
Bye bye.